We're going to be talking about this. We're also going to be talking about log homes. We're going to be talking about timber frames. We're going to be talking about the types of trees that are best to be used for log homes and timber frames. And during this process, I went over to the Fontana Village Resort here in Graham County. And there's a very special place there called the Gunter home. And the Gunter home, Jesse Gunter built that home back in 1875 with his brother Cyrene and his wife Catherine. And he moved there with his 4 children from Stokoe Gap. But I was shocked at what I found, and I'll go over that as well. I don't think we're going to be able to do this video series about this in just one video. And I'll tell you why as the time goes on through the video. So let's get to the video. Let's talk about hand hewing. Let's talk about this tool. Let's talk about log homes. Let's talk about the different species of trees that are best to be used for a log home. And let's also talk about what happened at the Gunter cabin and where it's at now and what is going to happen in the future as this historic site needs renovation and an upgrade, a massive upgrade. Hi everyone, this is Jef Welch. I'm here at the Gunter cabin. The Gunter cabin here was built in 1875. 1875 by Jesse Gunter and his wife Catherine. Sadly, this is the worst shape I've ever seen this cabin in. It has gone downhill in the last 2 years, and it needs some major repair. It's been a place to come see for many years. But this is what they call a half dovetail notch log home, and it was built out of poplar logs. And beautiful cabin. I'm not going into it right now. They have it closed off. This cabin is actually located at a place called Fontana Village Resort near Fontana Lake, near Robbinsville, North Carolina. And I'm going to take you around the other side here for just a moment. Again, it's in need of repair. Much like the sign, it's in need of repair. It's sad because this cabin's been here since 1875, and they restored it. They put a lot of time and effort into restoring it. And now look at the roof of the front porch. The roof of the front porch is falling in. They're trying to prop it up, it looks like. I'm going to take you around the side here so you can see. It's just a gorgeous cabin. But the roof was in need of repair. As you can see, had a lot of moss growing on it from the coverage of this big walnut tree that was shadowing it, and it caused the moss to grow on the wooden shake shingles. It had white oak shingles, split hand-hewn shingles, and just a beautiful specimen of architecture here in the Appalachian Smoky Mountains. But yet at the same time, as you can see, it has not been well maintained over the last few years. A lot of rot has taken place, and it needs some attention. And I hope that it gets the attention that it needs. But the reason I'm bringing you here is because of the fact that these logs were not sawn in a sawmill. These logs were hewn, and I'm going to show you the process of hewing in this video and how it's done. I'm not going to go through the process of how to cut dovetails. I'll do that on another time. But I want to show you how that they actually cut away and flatten the logs. And I'm going to do that with an antique tool of mine that I've had for many years. In fact, that tool is older than this house. This house was built in 1875. And let me give you just a little bit of history on this house. So Jesse Gunter, this is the Gunter cabin, built this in 1875 with his wife Catherine. Well, a few years later, there was a bad winter came through. Well, the 2 children got sick throughout that winter, and the 2 children died in that room. And Jesse did not want to use green lumber to make the caskets for his children, so he pulled up the floorboards of the cabin here and made the casket, one casket that was big enough for both of those children to be buried in, and he buried his children. Not long, only 4 years later, Catherine, out of grief of her children dying, she also came sick and died as well. And then Jesse moved away. So they only lived here in this home for about 13 years. But this home has a lot of history. It's one of the very few homes in the Appalachians from the early 1800s to mid 1800s. This was 1875, of course. It was just post Civil War. And this one here was restored, but it wasn't restored from another location and brought to this location. This home was built right here where it stands, and it was restored right here where it is right now, and it's at Welch Cove. And just on the hill behind the camera is the Welch Cove Cemetery, where the children are buried that died in the home here. And I'm a Welch, and the Welch Ridge in the Great Smoky Mountains that goes from Fontana Lake, which is right below me here, from Fontana Lake all the way to the peak of Clingman's Dome. Welch Ridge is named after our family, and our family cemetery is Welch Cemetery on the other side of Fontana Lake. We have to take a boat to get there. That gives you a little quick history. So anyway, I'm very fond of history. I'm very fond of the ways that they did things years ago. And it's important that we understand how things were done. They worked hard to build this home and to build it as nice as it is. And I really hope that the village here does whatever it takes to correct the situation and to bring it back up to par and to restore this home to its maintenance so that it will last. If the roof stays like it is right now, not only will the porches fall in, but the logs will start rotting and other things will start becoming damaged as well. I'm back at the farm, and I want to show you some different trees. And the reason I want to show you some different trees is because so many people wonder what is the best trees to build a log home with. Obviously there's different purposes for different types of posts or beams within a log structure, and some species of trees are better than others. I'm going to give you my take on it, and I hope that that will help you. And also, as I go into instruction on how to hew a beam to give it the kind of texture that you wish, then that's going to make a difference too, depending on your species. Now, this tree behind me right here is a maple tree. I'm not going to take you around necessarily to find a big one. Here's a larger one right here. This one would be big enough, plenty big enough to make a log out of. That's my dog that decided to break a stick out from under me here while I'm trying to do a video. So anyway, this is a maple tree. I would not use maple for any log home construction, period. It's okay to use maple for furniture and things like that, but definitely not for logs or structure. In my opinion, it's just not adequate for that type of construction. This is what you call black walnut. Black walnut is, in my opinion, at the top of the list. If you could afford it and if you could work it. It's not easy to work because it's a very hard wood. These are all black walnut. Black walnut. I've got some huge black walnuts here on the property. And they're very rot resistant. Excellent for building structure, strong. And if you were to do it on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd put it up there at 10. Very good piece of material, black walnut. And if you're building a log home and you are setting your logs, if you can afford to put black walnut at the base, the very first row of logs, you would have a better chance of that log home lasting longer because it's closer to the elements, closer to the ground, a much better material. Now I'm going to walk through the forest here for just a second and show you some other material here. Had to jump over the branch. Had to jump over the branch. As you can see, I have a forest full of trees. Huge forest full of trees. And here in the Smoky Mountains, we're blessed with wildlife and forest, all types of species of plants. This area right in here, I've harvested some material for furniture. Now this is something you don't see much of anymore. This is a hemlock. You can see down here at the bottom where the deers have been horning it, rubbing it with their horns. You don't see many big ones anymore. I have a few that's fairly sizable here. I like hemlock. I've built log homes out of hemlock. I've had good experience with hemlock. Hemlock is very good. Whew, it's hot today on this hill. But hemlock is very rot resistant once it's cut down, debarked, and it the best way to do it, to get the best look out of it, if you want a handcrafted look, you want to put the hemlock beams up in a round fashion instead of a square log. That way you get the effect of it. Now look up here at all these poplar trees. Those are all big tulip poplars. Now that log home I showed you earlier that was built back in 1875 was built out of logs about that size. Those are good sized logs, and that's about as big as they would cut them back then to make the logs for those size of homes. They had bigger logs to cut from, but their equipment, they did not have as much equipment to be able to lift larger logs. So very, very rare did they ever choose anything other than logs that size. I'm gonna walk up here to this one. I'm walking on steep ground here, as you can see. So forgive me being hot and out of breath. These trees grow straight and have very few limbs on them until you get way at the top, especially if they're growing in the forest. Now if they're growing out in the open, they're going to have larger limbs coming out. Many times they'll fork, and if they do, that creates knots to work with. The beauty of a poplar tree, a tulip poplar tree, is the bark will come off easily, especially if it's not cut in the wintertime. And you can use the bark for siding. And the material inside, it's not as hard to work with as oak. White oak, I'll show one of those to you in a minute. White oak is one of my favorite trees to work with because it's one of the most beautiful grains that you can find when you're building out log homes, and it's strong. And if you can afford and use oak to build you a log home, you have a premium construction. Poplar, in my opinion, is premium too. Why do they call it poplar? Because as it dries out, it's going to check. Check meaning a crack going along with the grain. And it's going to pop, and it's going to sound like a firecracker going off. For the first 2 or 3 years that you have your log home, you're going to have those sounds happening in your home, especially if you build it out of green log. Even if you build it out of dry logs, once you've milled them out, you're going to have some popping and cracking. It's just normal activity of the logs drying out. That home that I showed you, the Gunter home, that is being neglected right now is made out of this type of material right here. And that home has been there since 1875. And if they keep neglecting it, it won't last, because poplar cannot handle the weather. It needs that roof on it. The porch roof is necessary as well. If you notice under the porch of that home, those logs look like they had not had anything but a graying from the UV light of the sun. Everything else looked like it was just like it was the day they put it up. The logs that were out exposed to the weather, you've seen those. They had some erosion on them, but they have a natural patina that collects on the log. It's a gray film that creates on the natural edge of a poplar log that protects it, and it'll protect it forever. As long as you don't have someone out there carving their initials in it or scratching it, it will not get any deeper. It'll be about 1/8 of an inch deep, be that protective patina on it. If there's water running down at a certain area, it will actually erode and create a groove in that poplar log over the years, but it'll eventually stop eroding and heal over, and it'll be gray in that area. This is about the size of the log that was cut, about the size of the tree. And you can see how straight and beautiful these trees are. The poplars grow so straight. Look how straight these trees are. Some of them have some crooks in them, but they're straighter than your typical tree. I'm going to show you, and I'm walking on very steep ground here. I'm going to show you a poplar log tree over here that is impressive. And again, I'm sorry for the noise. I'm walking through the woods and holding my camera stand, and you're probably hearing every rattle in the camera when I'm carrying it. But I'm going to walk up here. I'm watching for copperheads and rattlesnakes as I'm walking. So as you can see, I'm walking through ferns. There's plenty of places here, and I'm next to the creek, as you can see over there. Look at all those beautiful poplars. Go way up. Here's a young poplar. See how straight and beautiful it is? When they're growing in the forest, they're going to go to the sunlight, straight up. So hot here today. One of the hottest days we've had this year. And here I am in the forest walking with you and a camera, talking to you about trees. Okay. And I'm walking through an area where it's a bit snaky, but look at this poplar tree. This poplar tree is huge. The camera is not giving it justice, but look how huge it is. This tree goes up about 120 feet. Now if you look real close up here behind me, you'll see a black tree. That's another black walnut. I have black walnuts growing wild through the forest. There's another black walnut right here. There's another one over there. Now, I am in the midst of course, scouting through my forest to get the right trees that I want to use on my barn. I'm not going to make it out of logs like a log home. It's just going to be a post and beam type construction, pole barn. Most of the beams in it's going to be vertical, straight up and down. I could use anything almost for that. White pine, you name it, as long as it's good and straight. I would not use white pine. I've heard people say this opposite from me, so I want you to hear what I'm about to say, because I'm going to tell you the truth. It's okay if white pine is used for a horizontal beam if it is a log on log. In other words, you see a lot of the commercial log homes that you can buy as a kit, and they're tongue and groove, and there's no air space in between the logs. But it's log on log. Log sits on the log. When you look at a dovetail log like the home that I showed you over at the Gunter cabin, that has a space in between it, and it's filled with cement or some type of chinking. That particular one has cement chinking in it. You can use other types of chinking like permachink. That's a type of a caulk that has a sanded texture to it to make it look like cement, but it makes it more flexible so that when the home moves and it retracts and expands, it moves with it, and you don't have the cracks and the problems. But if you have a log on log where they're sitting on top of each other, you can get by with white pine. Okay, so I had to change out my card here in my camera. So what I was talking about was white pine. I would not use white pine for a horizontal log unless it was a log on log. For a support beam that's horizontal, no way. Because let me tell you why. This is a dead one here, so you can kind of see what I have a little bit. I can show you better on one elsewhere, but since I'm right here and there's one here, I'm going to show it to you. If you'll look here, a white pine, their limbs go all the way around, all the way around, all the way around. If you'll notice that. Other pines, their limbs will be sporadic. Because of these limbs all lining up in a circle around the trunk of a tree, if you're using white pine in the trunk area where there's no limbs, no large knots, no issues. I agree. But it needs to be a thicker material because it's a soft lumber. It's not a hardwood. It's coniferous. It definitely stays evergreen. But I would trust a forest pine, a yellow pine, much more than I would a white pine for structure, unless it's a vertical post going straight up and down. If it's going horizontal, I would not trust it for a load that's say a beam that has to rest on it in a mid-span, because these knots lining up on a white pine create a weak spot. Now if it's log on log, where you're stacking logs on logs and you don't have any space in between them, they can be strong enough, and that's fine. But I would not use a white pine for a structural beam where loads are being placed on it intermediately. However, a poplar tree, when you have a tree this big here, and that one's at least 26, 27 inches thick through, that's a huge tree. I have some in the forest here much bigger than that. One like that would hold up a bridge. That is a strong piece of material. It's a hardwood. And if you're talking about a black walnut, even stronger. Locust, even stronger if it's a solid locust tree. You wouldn't want to work a locust tree if you're trying to build a home, because most of them are too crooked. Most of them are. Sometimes you get some straight pieces out of it. But locust would last and last and last, especially if you find some bigger ones to put down as your base plates around the house. You'd have the best tree possible. Years ago, people would use chestnut, the old-timey American chestnut that used to grow here in the forest here on the eastern Atlantic. Here in the Smoky Mountains, we were blessed with chestnut. They were huge. Some of them were 8, 10, 12 foot through. They were the largest tree in the United States other than the redwood trees. A blight came through, diseased them, that came from another country after the settlers came. It obviously hit the chestnut trees. The American chestnut was basically annihilated here in the United States in the early 1900s. I mean, you can still see them. I have a few growing here on the property, but they don't get but so big. Once they get so big, they die. The blight will take them out. They do have a sustainability, though. I mean, the old chestnuts, you could split them, make fence posts out of them, and they'd last 100 years sticking the fence post down in the ground, or yes, people would use those chestnut trees. They'd use that wood to make their log homes out of, especially the base log going around the home. Sometimes you can go way back here in the Great Smoky Mountains, which I butt up against the Smoky Mountains on the back side here. I can take you to places where old rock columns are there, where the log homes are gone. The homes have completely rotted away over the years, and there's nothing left but the 4 rock columns of a cabin and the base logs, which were chestnut, that were constructed into that first row, what I call sill plate logs of that log home when it was constructed years ago. Amazing how long those chestnuts would last. Chestnut wood was as good as locust, but it was straighter, much better lumber than locust, split better than locust, and it was much easier to work with, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Sometimes you can find some reclaimed chestnut wood. They call it wormy chestnut because over the years it'll get wormholes through it. I do have some wormy chestnut here in my barn that I've been saving for a project in the future. And I don't know what I'm going to use it for yet, but I do have that. So anyway, I hope this helps. I'm going to show you how to hew using an old tool that I have that was made back in the 1830s. And it's just a joy for me to even pick that tool up and to use it. And I have used it and used it and used it over the years. I'm not afraid to use it. I'm not afraid to break it. I'm not afraid to worry about it. I know that it's a very good tool. It was built right. And that tool within 10 years or so is going to be 200 years old. And yet it still is one of the best tools I have ever had in my shop. So I'm going to show that to you as I show you how to hew and texture and chisel away at a beam. So you'll understand what I'm saying when I show it to you. I hope all this instruction about the different species of material has helped you a little bit. And when you're choosing your material to build your structure of your home, I hope that you choose well.